Hello, Watem here and welcome to some Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 7, Minagoroshi. So yeah, I think this is the first one which is actually from Rika's point of view, compared to the fourth one which had a focus on Rika, but was from the detective's point of view. But yeah, so now that it's actually from Rika's point of view, I think we'll get to learn a lot more about like what's actually going on and get some more answers. I also think that this is mirroring the fourth chapter, like how the fifth chapter kind of mirrors the second one, and the sixth chapter mirrors the first one. But yeah, in any case, I've had some time to think since I finished the last game, so I've got a few theories. Um, so in the first chapter, Oishi says that Tano-san disappeared. If my theory that Takano-san always kills Tomitaka-san is correct, I can think of two possibilities. One, we weren't told her body was found, which is probably more likely. Or two, uh, we saw last chapter that Keiichi was able to remember a past loop. Maybe Takano-san can as well. And after the first time, she decided it was safer to prepare a fake death. Which is probably unlikely. But it might be possible that she's more on the nefarious side of things. She does seem to have been tailoring her stories for each protagonist in the chapters, like 1, 2, or 1 and 2, as it was shown in chapter 5, where she tailored it to Shion, and in 6 as well, um, telling, giving Ren of ones which had like the bug and all that stuff, probably focusing on her that time to get her to do stuff. To go on, yeah, cause them to go on a killing spree. Maybe chapter 3 as well. I can't quite remember. Yeah, she always seems to be the trigger somewhat with her research, and maybe she actually knows the truth behind Rika. Hmm. Yeah. In chapter 6, it either ends with Rika dead because of Rana, or everyone is in the ambulance. Chaos when they arrive. Opportunity to kill Rika is a backup plan. Um, and then once Rika dies, what's it called? Then like the whole thing where everyone else dies happens. Because I think, if I remember the credits correctly, it says that Rika died separately, um, as opposed to, or everyone else who died with the um, carbon dioxide or monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning, I think. Yeah. So that might be a possibility. Um, yeah. Mm, I had most of this idea that Takano-san was a bad actor already, and I recently saw that Chapter 8 had been released on Steam, and the icon features Takano-san, so yep, that probably reinforces my idea that she's a larger player than she initially seems. Either way, with her point of view, and her justifications for murdering Tomitaka-san, plus whatever else she causes, I think that that next chapter will finally answer all the questions in Higurashi. Um, Also, while the last chapter answered a lot about chapter 1, one thing it didn't cover is the missing half of the message behind the clock. What happened to that? Why did that happen? It was the weight of the pen pulling like on a weakened fold. Then the message would have been found beneath the clock, but it wasn't. They never found the other half of the message, so what happened to it? Hmm. Also, what happened to Rika in that path? Do we ever come across that? I don't think we do. In any case, I guess we'll get started. Ooh. Minagoroshi, the final truth. Massacre chapter. The story introduces the unit inside and out, using all the actors. This is no longer a story. It's a public autopsy for all to join. As they say, after loving someone, cut open their belly and eat their organs. It's the same with stories. The difficulty is quite mild, well suited for those with pride. Yeah, seems like shards with seams of places which we've seen before. What are you doing? I don't see you playing by yourself that often. All you could do before was nod to my questions. Since when did you have your own will? I'm glad. I finally have a sister or a brother, whichever you are. I used to be an existence of nothingness, just like you. One day, I began to have my own identity, my own thoughts, and eventually, my own body. So it's not a surprise to see you in possession of your own will. Welcome to this vast yet tiny world, my sister. You might be my brother, but let me call you my sister until I know for sure. This is an endless, eternal, and infinite world. But that doesn't mean it's boundlessly vast. I suppose you could describe it like a ring with a small diameter. While the ring is an eternal, endlessly looping world, that doesn't mean it contains infinite space. Yes, in short, this world is eternally sealed. The future is supposed to be an infinite weave of countless choices. Yet, for whatever reason, our world always ends in death. So, this is probably Rika, or maybe the like higher level Rika kind of thing. I'm calling it our world. If I were to compare it to something, perhaps a maze of fates would be appropriate. Looping through the same moments forever steadily grows harder and more dejecting, eventually producing something like me. Then, as that draws further on, even one like you is born, and eventually this world may be filled with your sisters too. After that, we'll build a colony inside of it, and once we lose our interest in this maze, Rika Furude will disappear from this world. It looks like you still cling to this narrow world, Rika, though I lost interest long ago. Which is why I'm truly glad you were born for me to talk to. So, what are you doing? Are you collecting fragments of memory? There's only 5 or 6 of them right now. It must still be fun for you though. There used to be more fragments long ago, but one by one they disappeared into the darkness. Now these are the only ones that remain clear. So, did they disappear because you gave up on them? Or what? Ran out of chances? Or like you went through them and these are the only ones that remain where you didn't die in? Or something? Or is it that these 5 which we've, or 6 that we've done so far are the only ones? Like, are these ones where all that like, remains clear in their head or something? Oh, that's not how you're supposed to use it. See? Try and hold it up to the light. So, where is all this as well? And where's the light coming from? All of that is the life of Rika Furude and its end. That one is... Oh, I remember that one. That's the world when Keiichi was cursed. Those fragments are like books to me, so I titled that one Minagoroshi chapter. Do you remember what happened in that one? Good. That makes things easier. In Onikakushi, Keiichi Maibara was consumed by the darkness. He couldn't accept the kind words his friends offered him, and eventually beat them to death, not knowing of their kindness. You were all killed after that, anyway. That had nothing to do with his story, though. That fragment is for Nagashi chapter. Shion Sonozaki was cursed in that one. She killed many people out of revenge for her boyfriend's disappearance as he went missing in 1982. Rika worked so hard, but she was captured at the end, and she was tortured to death. That's why she chose to commit suicide in the Minagoroshi chapter, because things were going to turn out the same way. Let me just check which one that was. Sorry. So yeah, that was chapter 5. That fragment over there is called the Minagoroshi chapter. Satoko's uncle came back and locked her up inside her house. That was the worst world of all. There was nothing Rika was able to do in that world. Whenever Satoko's uncle comes back, Rika usually just gives up on that world. Fortunately, Satoko's uncle doesn't come back that frequently. That one is called the Higurashi chapter. Rika was there until just a moment ago. Ryugu was possessed in that world. It was pretty exciting to see her take over the whole school. It surprised me to learn that Keiichi Maibara had a memory of the other worlds, just like we do. It was pretty amazing. But then again, most of us have some kind of memory like that. We all have an imaginary world within us. Some idea of what would have happened if you did things differently. It's like the strange feeling you get when you do something for the first time, but it feels like you've done it before. Deja vu. What about jamais vu? Everyone has a memory of an imaginary world in their mind, but the memory is not always that clear. It's not surprising, really. You're special enough to be able to see those fragments of memory. It's probably very difficult for you to understand how special you really are. You were born into a world where it's a natural thing for you to see these fragments. I was originally born in the normal world. I didn't know until recently that I could collect these fragments of memory. You grabbed those fragments just because you could, but I didn't know how to do that for a long time. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're not interested in hearing my story. Huh? What's wrong? What are you curious about? Oh? You're curious as to why so many different incidents occur in the same world? Hehe. It's very interesting, isn't it? Why do you think that's the case? Let's think about it together. Thinking is the first step towards playing a game. The main character among Rika's group of friends is Keiichi Maibara. In Onikakushi, he was possessed by suspicion and killed Ryugu and Mion Sonozaki. If that was an inevitable event, he would be killing them in every world. In other words, what Keiichi Maibara did in Onikakushi was not inevitable. Indeed, the only thing that's inevitable is Keiichi Maibara's role. If Keiichi Maibara was someone with a naturally suspicious heart, he would take the same actions in every world. I'm kind of reminded of like the turning point in Steins Gate, when he tries to save Mayushi, but every single time she dies, but in a different way. For example, sometimes she is killed by the people that are targeting them. Sometimes someone trips and accidentally knocks her in front of a train. Her dying is fixed, but the cause and what leads up to it isn't necessarily. But the whole point of that is that the future isn't fixed. I'm wondering if there's going to be maybe a similar idea of this. But that didn't happen. It's true that Keiichi Maibara is both passionate and easily convinced of anything, but it's rare for him to exhibit the kind of rage he displayed in Onikakushi. In other words, even though something might seem inevitable in one world, that may not be the case if you compare it to a different one. If something really is inevitable, it will happen for sure in every life. That's what true inevitability is like. It's very important that you know that. When you compare the different worlds, what's common among all of them is the truth. Understand? Like I said, what seems inevitable in one life could just be a random event in another. The club activities that Mion Sanazaki suggests are a good example. If Mion Sanazaki had a strong inclination towards playing certain games, he would be playing them in every world. But in reality, you participate in different activities most of the time. That means that the games we play in the club are randomly decided by Mion Sanazaki. We know that now because we've been through many different lives. Those who only live in one world can't see if the event in question is inevitable or random. Those who only live once can't predict what's going on in Mion Sanazaki's mind, but we can. Although the activities are random, Mion Sanazaki calls us together for the club meeting almost every day in every life. I can see that Mion Sanazaki holds a strong will towards having the club meeting. Mion Sanazaki always wants to play with the other club members, but she doesn't know what to play. See? You can read Mion Sanazaki's mind just by simply examining these fragments. With this alone, you can see part of who Mion Sanazaki really is. Let me talk a bit more about Keiichi Maibara. For those who only live once, the world of the Onikakushi chapter is nothing but a story where Keiichi suffered mysterious hallucinations and beat his friends to death. To them, there's nothing beyond that fact. We, however, can compare different fragments and find out something they could never see. As a result, we know that the murder of his friends was not inevitable. I told you that just earlier. In fact, while there are about 5 or 6 pieces in front of you, he only kills his friends in one of them. That means we can roughly conclude that the possibility Keiichi Maibara triggers the tragedy is less than 20%, and is almost a fluke. This means that amongst the countless worlds, Keiichi Maibara causing the tragedy is a non-important factor. Now, can you find the common thread to be drawn from here? Oishi as well. When I was talking about what's her name? Sakano-san. like always being the same, always explaining the curse. Oishi as well, perhaps. Oishi and Takano-san both kind of fit that role. Oishi, I think, doesn't know. Takano-san, though, might be trying to get a response out. At least that's what I think. My, found you already? No wonder you were born in this world. You're quick to learn the knack of playing with building blocks. I didn't figure that out for a while. I was born in the normal world, so I could only see things from a single world's perspective. I was too obsessed with the fact that Keiichi Maibara caused the tragedy, so I had trouble finding it. Right. That's exactly right. You see it? The Yonekikushi, Mashinagashi, Meakashi, and Sumihoroboshi chapters all have something in common. Someone in the group becomes violent because of dark and paranoid thoughts. Each world, either Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, or Rena Ryugu became violent as their delusions grew stronger. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Rena Ryugu were all my close friends, but they were all born and raised differently. The only common factor is that they all live in Hinamizawa. I just said it not too long ago, though. When we peer through these fragments of multiple worlds, the constant phenomena become facts, and the chance phenomena hold little meaning. In other words, the unrelated individual culprits are not all that important. To go further, the violence of the crimes also bears no meaning. Keiichi Maibara beat his friends to death. Shion Sonozaki killed the central people of the three families, and Rena Ryugu took over the school. They were all different. There's nothing in common there. In fact, the very, very important truth is that while the culprit in crimes are decided at random, the process of growing paranoid until they resort to violence is always constant. The suspect changes every time, if the process does not. After comparing the different worlds, this is the truth I found. This is one truth that is common to all the worlds of Hinamizawa. The rule is that a random person becomes violent under the influence of paranoid thoughts. This is Rule X. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Rena Ryugu, pieces with no particular connection, have the potential to succumb to that rule with random probability. I don't know what the probability is that those pieces will be ensnared by that rule. Perhaps there is some rule to that too. Is it because these three are all close in age? Or is it because they all live in Hinamizawa? Well, we're not detectives or police officers. This is not something that a small girl like us, Rika Furude, can easily figure out. At least we know that there's a mysterious rule in the world of Hinamizawa. People who only live in one world have no way of knowing that. I'm proud of myself for figuring that out. I guess for you it's not particularly surprising though. Huh? What did you say? That's right. If something is common among all worlds, that means it's fated to happen. Some events quickly come to mind, don't they? Right. Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are always killed in those worlds. Is she killed though? On top of that, they are murdered in exactly the same way in every world. In other words, unlike our previous rule of its variability, their murders are thoroughly planned out by someone with a strong will. If that does not fit with the mysterious, vague Rule X that leads to a random individual's violence. After all, they are always murdered, regardless of who falls to Rule X. Therefore, there's another rule to these worlds. A rule that says student Tomitake and Mio Takano will be killed on the night of Washinagashi. Let's call it Rule Y. Don't you see how funny this is? No? Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are killed in every world, right? Every time. The character who gets cursed always thinks that their deaths has something to do with the danger that's awaiting them. The fact that someone turns violent, or legs, and Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano's death, rule Y, are supposed to be two independent rules, but they all tend to link them together. Of course, one could say that's how they became ensnared in the spell of paranoia leading them to violence to begin with. But do you think, in their paranoia, do they notice someone is trying to lead them to link those rules together? Takano-san? Yes. Whoever the piece leading them is, they are the one making the stage called Hinamizawas very complicated. You should have noticed at least two suspicious people. Do you know who I'm talking about? That's right. Oishi and Takano? Yeah. I'm referring to Oishi and Mio Takano. When you compare our previous fragments, the role of a piece known as Oishi becomes clear. He's a detective who is retiring this year, and he's in a hurry to solve the mystery of the series of deaths in Hinamizawa. In terms of detective, yeah, the line with "we're not detectives or police officers." Oops. Apparently, I can scroll down. And... okay. He's a detective who's retiring. After he retires, he'll have to move away from the village. That's why he's desperate to solve this case before he has to leave Hinamizawa. Why is he so obsessed with the serial murders in Hinamizawa? Oh, because his friend died in the first year? That's right. It's because of that first murder involving the manager of the construction site. The victim was Oishi's close friend. You will see that if you look at the Hinamizawa chapter. Oishi was there when the dam conflict was at its peak. He saw how the Sonozaki family took control of the Yonagafuchi Guardians, and he believed that the Sonozaki family was pulling the strings behind the whole incident. That's why he always suspected that the Sonozaki family was behind the series of mysterious deaths, regardless of the evidence or lack thereof. His personal, biased belief, combined with his credibility as a police detective, affected the pity of all victims of persecution complexes in each world. As a result, the pitiful victims of Rule X come to accept the Sonozaki family as the identity of the unknown force in their paranoia seeks. Shion Sonozaki's case was the most conspicuous one in that matter. So yes, if this piece, Oishi, didn't intervene, then perhaps the victims of Rule X wouldn't have resorted to such violence. I wonder, when she, dives into, the chapters, does she dive into a specific chapter, or does she dive into one and then go, oh, this is chapter A? I guess we'll find out soon, maybe? Maybe later. Did I read this? So yes, if this piece Oishi didn't intervene, then perhaps the victims of Rule X wouldn't have resorted to such violence. So the role his piece plays is to indirectly cause the tragedy. I don't know who named him this, but Oishiro-sama's servant is the perfect nickname for Oishi. The other suspicious person is Mio Takano. One would assume the only role of her piece is to amuse herself with research into Onagafuchi's dreadful history, and to take pleasure in scaring others with those tales. However, just like Oishi, she also gives them the idea that the Sonozaki family is behind all the mysterious incidents that happen over the village. She interfered the most with Ren and Ryugu. For Mio Takano, Ren and Ryugu was the perfect prey, grasping at straws to try and identify the force she suspected. Ironically, however, Mio Takano always ends up getting killed at the end. If she had survived and seen Rena take over the school, she would have laughed long and loud. Even in all these worlds, you never see Takano alive? Because I'm still pretty sure that she faked her own death. Like we've seen from chapter 5, the explanation for why quote-unquote Mion was found dead earlier. Like, found dead and then reappeared. Oh, she was dead by that point already. Oh, etc. And it was also mentioned that Takano was dead the day before, quote-unquote dead. It would make sense that her death is perfectly normal as well. It's a perfectly normal explanation. Such as she faked her own death. Like modified records, etc. so that she could fake her own death. So that someone else's body could be identified as hers. And yet you still believe that she dies. Interesting. In any case, I'll end it here for today. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know any feedback you have in the comments. And until next time, see ya.